So around 2 months ago, I set myself the challenge of trying to make an aquarium with as little tech as possible. Why? Why, I hear you ask? Why can't you just put a little filter in it? Well, it's not that I don't like filters, I just love the challenge of not having them. So the quest began and I started doing research, looking at like some of my old videos, because I used to do this quite a bit, but I wanted better success than I've had before, because eventually my old no filter tanks, they sort of looked a bit stale, and I think that's because I never started with the right nutrients. So I made a start, I read Dino Wildstad's book. Now I'm not going to pretend that I captured everything, because it's a very complicated ecology of the plant. Anyway, what I went for is topsoil capped with sand and gravel. Basically, this means there's a really good nutrient layer underneath, and then on the top of that, it's all locked down with the sand and gravel. We can then build a little simple hardscape. I wanted to keep it minimal to make sure that there's lots and lots of space in the aquarium for the actual plants. The plants are going to be the filter, going to clean the water, they're going to provide oxygen for the fish and all that kind of thing. They'll also be using the waste generated from the fish in their root systems to grow even more and just boost everything. So I went heavy on the plants, as you can see, and we also added floating plants as well, which I think is massively important in these aquariums. They have access to CO2 from the atmosphere, but they've also got their roots in the water column, which means they grow fast, multiply, and pull out nitrates and ammonia and everything else that plants use to grow. I was really, really pleased with the result in the end, and I think it looks so good. The fish seem really happy as well. And now we fast forward to 2 months later, and here is where we're sitting, and it looks so, so good, doesn't it? As you can see down here, the dwarf hairgrass carpet has carpeted, it's gone everywhere. The Halanthyon tenellum, that look is sending out runners and covering the whole surface. And just look at that substrate system working a treat. The runners are going in the gravel, but all of the roots are actually penetrating and going down to the bottom soil layer you can see there. And one of the best things is there's hardly any algae at all. There's always a tiny bit of algae in any tank. Anyone who says there isn't probably lying. Like on the glass, there's a tiny little bit of green spot algae, but we can live with that, can't we? On the surface, you can see plants are also growing out the top of the water. So this plant here is Hygrophila polysperma, and it loves growing out of the water. I've had it actually happen quite a few times on my tanks. Looks really good, right? It's also doing it on the other side as well. And the red floating plants, they are multiplying. This is red root floaters. Like I say, it's really good to have floating plants in these kind of aquariums. And you can see at the back, we've got the Salvinia as well. There was way more than this. I've taken out huge amounts already. Every other day I have to come in and take out a handful. But that's brilliant, because it means the whole thing is doing its job. It's all working exactly as planned. Now, one of my favourite plants is actually this fluffy looking one you can see in the middle here, and this is Limnophila siciliflora, and look at it, it's gorgeous. Even that's trying to grow out the water now as well. From underneath you can see that it takes up a huge amount of space in the aquarium, but that's fine. It adds so much green and so much beauty. And at the top here, it's sending out roots from nodes. It's trying to find even more nutrients. It knows where those nutrients are, and across the board that we can see lots of roots trying to get down to that surface, that nutrient rich surface, which is the key to the success of this whole tank. I think we can class this as a no tech tank, can't we? I mean, there's no tech in the tank. The only tech at all is this light that's across the top, which is very, very low budget. But I'm thinking if I had this near a window or something like that, the natural ambient light would probably be really, really good as well. That's something I'd like to try one day, sunlight aquarium. Now, another reason I really, really love this aquarium is because it sparked something in me that made me do it on lots more other ones as well. For instance, after I did that one, I then created this one, which is actually a larger tank for my neon tetras, and it's done just as well. A little bit dark in the back area there. That's because there's so many floating plants in that top section. And there we go, look, it's brightening everything up in there now. And the reds in the Ludwigia at the back there really pop in. We've got lots of really nice fish in this tank. We've got ember tetras. We've got the neon tetras, the standard neon that everyone loves. We've also got some baby guppies at the top somewhere and some Chiliosporas, all doing really, really well. And this tank's actually a month younger than the other one, but still doing really good. So I was having really great success. 2 aquariums that are just running beautifully, perfectly. I don't even intervene. All I do is top the water up on them. That is it. No maintenance, nothing. The plants do all of the work. Well, the plants, and the fish and the light, I guess, as well. But it's time to take it up a notch because those first two, barely any hardscape, not really an aquascape as you would call it. They look nice, don't get me wrong, but the focus was on the plants and learning to grow the plants well with the right mixture of like compost at the bottom, which I did try and didn't work, way too nutrient dense. I switched it up and went for topsoil with a little bit aquatic soil as well mixed in. Aquatic pond soil, it's like the stuff you get in baskets, so you put pond plants in. Yeah, I figured it's good for that, so it'll be good for this. And then we ended up with this one. That is what I'm talking about, a fully aquascaped, no filter, capped dirt. Oh, it's just not rolling off the tongue very well, is it? But yeah, a dirted, no filter tank, a massive success. This is an Endler one. As you can see, we've got some really nice Endlers in here. There's some females, and the rest of them are down here pecking at an algae wafer that I've just put in, which was actually intended for the shrimp in here, but everyone's welcome. There's actually about 4 of them, but they're all going for that same one for some strange reason. But we've got a massive mix of different plants in this tank, all of them growing perfectly as well. We've got Ludwigia palustria super red, we've got Rotala hra, Bucephalandra cadagang, Hygrophila polysperma, which is one of my favourites. It's just a really good, easy plant that everyone should get. A lovely bunch of Rotala rotundifolia right at the back there as well. And this one you can see here is Rotala macrandra, which is actually supposed to be for high-tech systems, but was working really well in this one. So that's 3 really good aquariums now, which suggests to me that I've nailed the method, fingers crossed. I mean, I can't see anything going wrong in these. The plants are just too healthy. So I've done a 2 foot, I've done a 3 foot or almost 3 foot. The tank behind me is like 2.8 foot. What do we say about upping it now and going for a 4 foot with a bit bigger fish? So this right here is my 4 foot angelfish tank, which, well, to be honest, we should probably call it my 4 foot moss tank. All the moss that you're seeing here was basically a couple of clippings that went down and just grew exponentially. But the tank's predominantly home to these gorgeous angelfish we've got here, and obviously the cardinals and rummy nose as well. There's also a large number of cories in the tank, so if I want to keep those and do a dirted setup, I'm going to need a really thick layer of capping, which I can do. So yeah, it's not something I've done in the other ones, so it'd be even more of a challenge. So at the moment, nothing other than the moss is pretty much surviving in this tank. Even the Java ferns are dying out, and that's purely because there's basically no nutrients in the water column. That moss is just sucking it all out. There's also a filter right in the back corner, an internal one, but it's not been running for like a month. And to be honest, I don't think it needs it with this amount of moss. But anyway, I digress. The tank is not looking its finest, and I think we can do something so much better. I'm gonna try and replicate that first tank you saw in this one, like on a massive, massive scale, but with way better aquascaping, as in more hardscape and rocks and shape and structure. And then there's tons of room still after that for loads of plants as well. It'll be the biggest no filter tank I've done to date. I think it should be really, really good.